She looked me straight in the eye and said, "You don't belong here." I was standing in the lobby of my own apartment building, holding a coffee, earbuds in, ready to head out for the day. I thought I misheard her. I took one earbud out and asked, "Sorry." That's when she stepped closer, crossed her arms, and repeated herself, louder this time. "You don't belong here. This is a private property." At first, I thought maybe she had confused me with a visitor or a delivery guy. It happens sometimes. But there was something in her tone, something cold and rehearsed. She wasn't asking. She was accusing. And she was dead serious. I told her calmly that I lived in the building, had for years actually. Unit 3B. She didn't even blink. She just said, "Then prove it." Now imagine that. You're on your way to work, standing in your own building, and some stranger demands you prove you live there. I laughed nervously, thinking this would end there. But it didn't. She stepped closer, looked around the lobby as if searching for backup, then pulled out her phone. I still remember her words. "I'm calling security. We have a suspicious person loitering in the lobby." Suspicious. That word hit me like a slap. I tried to stay calm. Told her my name. Offered to pull up my lease agreement on my phone. Even told her the name of the building manager. None of it mattered. She held up her hand to cut me off and kept talking into her phone like I wasn't even there. Within minutes, a security guard walked in. I recognized him, Mike. We always exchanged nods in the hallway. But now, he looked confused, eyes bouncing between me and this woman he didn't seem to know. She jumped into the conversation first, loud and dramatic. "This man is trespassing. He's refusing to identify himself." I looked at Mike. "You know me, man. I live here." He hesitated. I think so, but I need to check with management." That was the moment it really hit me. In her eyes, I was already guilty. And suddenly, even people who should have had my back were second-guessing. She stood there, calm and smug, as I tried calling the front office. No answer. Then I texted my neighbor. No reply. It felt like the walls were closing in. Then came the moment that still makes my stomach twist. 2 officers walked in through the front doors. Blue uniforms. Serious expressions. One of them asked, "Is this the individual?" She pointed without hesitation. "Yes." I stepped forward, tried to explain. One of the officers asked for ID. I gave it to him. He glanced at it and looked at his partner. "Still need to check." Next thing I knew, I was being asked to step outside. When I hesitated, they stepped in. "Sir, we can do this the easy way or the hard way." I can't explain the feeling of being treated like a criminal in your own building. Neighbors peeking through their doors. Someone pulling out a phone. That slow, hot flush of shame crawling up your neck. They didn't cuff me then. But I was escorted to the patrol car. Sat in the back like a suspect. And the worst part? She was still in the lobby, watching it all with a smug little smirk on her face. Like she won. At the precinct, everything slowed down. They made some calls, checked records. Eventually, they realized I wasn't trespassing. I really did live in 3B. The officer who processed me apologized in that professional but not really sorry kind of way. Said, "We're just doing our job, sir." I nodded, but inside I was shaking. I didn't even know her name at that point. Just that she was some self-appointed watchdog from the HOA. One of those people who acts like they own the whole building. When I finally got home, hours later, the front desk had a note taped to it. "See manager before going up." I knocked on the office door. The manager, Lisa, let me in with a tired look on her face. She already knew. "Yeah, I heard. The board got a call too. Karen reported you for aggressive behavior." Karen. Lisa sighed. "That's what people call her. She doesn't live here. But she sits on the HOA board. Thinks that gives her authority." I stared at her, stunned. "She doesn't live here?" "No. Her daughter does. She just visits. A lot." I felt something break inside me. All that stress, the fear, the humiliation, and it was all because of someone who didn't even live in the building. I asked Lisa if she could write something up, a statement confirming my residency. She nodded, but looked uncomfortable. "She's caused problems before," Lisa muttered, almost under her breath. "But she's tight with the board. I'll be careful what I say." Careful. That word said it all. I walked back to my unit that night with a thick folder of emotions pressed against my chest: anger, embarrassment, disbelief. But more than anything else, determination. Because this wasn't going to end here. And she was going to regret ever calling me suspicious. I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, that smug expression, the way she pointed at me like I was some threat. My heart kept racing, like it was still trapped in that lobby. I kept hearing the officer's voice in my head: "Sir, step outside." It wasn't just humiliating. It felt like betrayal. This was supposed to be my home, my safe place. And now I couldn't even step into the lobby without anxiety curling in my chest. The next morning, I woke up exhausted but angry. I sat on my couch, stared at my ID, then opened my laptop. If I was going to fight this, I needed proof. I started with the building's website, looking for HOA board members. Sure enough, there she was, Karen, real name Susan Marks. Not a resident, but listed as a board member. I clicked through everything I could find. Meeting minutes, newsletters, even a scanned PDF of building complaints. And what I found made my jaw tighten. She'd filed multiple reports in the past 6 months. All of them vague, and all against residents who didn't fit in, as she wrote. Words like loitering, disturbing the peace, and unauthorized guests popped up over and over. One even mentioned a guy I sometimes saw walking his dog. Sweet old man, always smiled. Apparently, she'd accused him of feeding stray animals. Another complaint targeted a delivery driver who, according to her, spent too long in the building. These weren't just accidents. She was doing this intentionally. She was using her title to harass people who didn't meet her standard of what safe looked like. My fingers clenched the edge of my laptop. This wasn't just personal anymore. It was a pattern. And I wasn't going to be the next quiet victim. I went down to the front office later that day. Lisa, the manager, looked up and sighed as soon as she saw me. I asked her if I could get a copy of the lobby camera footage from the day before. At first, she hesitated. "You know how the board is about this stuff," she said softly. "I could lose my job if they find out." I leaned on the counter, voice low but firm. "I got dragged out of here by police, Lisa. In front of my neighbors. I just want the truth." Something in her eyes shifted then. Maybe she saw how shaken I still was. Maybe she had her own reasons. But after a pause, she nodded slowly. "Give me an hour," she whispered. While I waited, I walked through the lobby again. It looked the same as always, clean, quiet, neutral. But now, every part of it felt stained. The smell of the polished floors, the hum of the elevators, even the cushioned bench by the window, all of it brought back flashes of that moment. The shame. The helplessness. Lisa texted me. The footage was ready. Back in her office, she turned the monitor toward me. There I was, on screen, walking in with my coffee. Minding my business. Then Karen entered from the side. I watched, sick to my stomach, as she approached me, started talking, pointing. No pushing, no threats. I stood there calmly. Tried to walk away. She blocked me. Then made the call. The worst part was seeing it from the outside, how cold and calculated she looked. How sure of herself. There was no fear in her face. Just power. Lisa burned the footage onto a USB. Slipped it across the desk without saying a word. That night, I started writing everything down. A timeline. Details. Exact quotes. I knew emotion wasn't enough. I needed facts. I needed to show a pattern. I also emailed the HOA with a formal complaint. Attached the video. Attached my lease, my ID, even letters from 2 neighbors confirming they'd seen me living in 3B for years. I didn't expect them to act right away. But I wanted a paper trail. The next few days were tense. Every time I saw someone from the board, they avoided eye contact. A few neighbors, though, nodded at me in the hallway. One even whispered, "Good for you, as we passed by the laundry room. I wasn't sure how they knew, maybe word had spread, but it gave me a tiny spark of hope. Then something strange happened. I got a letter slid under my door. No envelope. Just a single folded sheet of paper. Typed. No signature. It said, asterisk, "You're making this worse for everyone. If you don't drop it, you'll regret it." Asterisk. My hands trembled as I read it. Not because I was scared, but because I was furious. They thought I'd back down. They thought they could intimidate me. They still believed I was the one who didn't belong. The next morning, I walked straight into a lawyer's office. I told him everything. The false accusation, the arrest, the pattern of harassment. I showed him the footage, the reports, the anonymous note. He leaned back in his chair, nodded slowly. "We've got something here," he said. "False reporting. Defamation. Emotional distress. Especially if she's on the board and abusing her position." He drafted a formal letter to the HOA and to Susan Marks personally. Demand for apology, public correction of the incident, and compensation for legal fees and emotional damages. He also filed a civil complaint. Just knowing someone had my back now gave me the energy I'd lost. Days passed. Then a week. And then I got the call. The HOA had scheduled an emergency board meeting. I wasn't invited, not yet, but word got out that it was about me. And her. That night, someone knocked on my door. It was Lisa. She looked tired, but there was a hint of a smile on her face. "You didn't hear it from me," she said softly, "but they're reviewing her position." I didn't say anything. Just nodded. Inside, though, something lit up in me. A tiny flame of justice. Maybe I wouldn't get everything I wanted. But this was no longer just about me. It was about every person she'd tried to push out. Every neighbor she made feel small. Every visitor she treated like a threat. She had called the police on me like I was nothing. Now, she was the one under review. And I wasn't done yet. The morning of the HOA board meeting, I woke up before my alarm. I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting my shirt, wondering how it had come to this. A part of me still couldn't believe it. All of this because someone decided I didn't look like I belonged. I wasn't just going for me anymore. I was walking in there for every person she tried to intimidate. For every neighbor who kept quiet. For every time I questioned myself instead of questioning her. The boardroom was smaller than I imagined. Beige walls. A long table. 5 people sitting around it, looking uncomfortable. Karen was already there, sitting straight-backed in a navy blazer, like she was attending a country club brunch. Her smile didn't quite reach her eyes when I walked in. That smug confidence was still there, but it had cracks now, little flashes of nerves behind her expression. The president of the board, a man named Howard, cleared his throat and motioned for me to sit. I nodded politely but didn't sit. I placed the folder on the table. It had copies of everything: the video, the police report, the anonymous note, the lawyer's letter. I wanted them to see it. Feel it. Own it. Howard adjusted his glasses. "We've reviewed your complaint," he began, voice dry and rehearsed. "This is, of course, a sensitive situation. And we're taking it seriously." I didn't interrupt. I wanted to hear what they had to say before I spoke. The woman next to him, Sandra, I think, leaned forward and said, "We've also received several statements from other residents about previous incidents. Patterns, really." That was the first time I saw Karen's expression falter. Her lips parted slightly. She looked at Sandra like she couldn't believe what she was hearing. I took a breath and finally spoke. My voice was calm, but steady. "I've lived in this building for 5 years. I've paid every HOA fee on time. Never caused trouble. Never raised my voice. But that day, none of it mattered. Because she decided I didn't belong. And in seconds, I went from neighbor to suspect." Karen opened her mouth to respond, but Howard held up a hand. "Please, let him finish." I kept going, each word peeling back another layer of what I'd felt. "She called the police on me. Lied about me refusing to identify myself. She got me detained. And even after it was proven I lived here, she didn't apologize. She doubled down. Sent that anonymous note. Tried to intimidate me into silence. That's not just harassment, that's abuse of power. Karen finally snapped. I did what I thought was right. There have been incidents in this building. I was trying to keep things safe. Her voice shook a little. I looked at her, not with hate, but with something colder, disappointment. You weren't trying to keep people safe. You were trying to control who gets to feel safe. The room went quiet. That silence wasn't empty. It was heavy, filled with shame, tension, and something new, accountability. Howard finally spoke again. Based on the evidence and the complaints we've received, the board has decided to remove Susan Marks from all HOA decision-making responsibilities effective immediately. He paused, glanced at Karen. We will also issue a formal apology to you and update your file to reflect that this incident was an error in judgment, not a criminal matter. Karen blinked. Her face turned red. She looked around the room, waiting for someone to speak up for her. No one did. They asked me if I had anything else to say. I looked down at the folder, then back at the board. I want a letter from the HOA sent to all residents, explaining what happened. Not just for me. For the next person she might have targeted. I want people to know it's safe to live here. No one should be afraid to walk through their own lobby. Howard nodded. We can make that happen. As I left the room, Karen stayed seated. Her arms were crossed tightly now, shoulders tense. She didn't look at me. Maybe she couldn't. I didn't need her to. Back in the lobby, I stood there for a moment. Same place, same space, but it felt different now. I wasn't invisible anymore. I wasn't ashamed. I was angry, yes. But more than that, I was proud. Later that week, the letter went out. A building-wide email from the HOA explaining what had happened, reaffirming the right of every resident to feel safe and respected. They didn't name Karen directly, but everyone knew. People started talking more in the elevator. Nods turned into actual greetings. One neighbor knocked on my door and brought banana bread. I'm sorry I didn't speak up sooner, she said. But thank you for standing up. I smiled, took the plate, and told her she didn't have to say anything more. A few days after that, I saw Karen one last time. She was walking out of the building with a tote bag and her head down. I didn't say a word. Just stepped aside. She didn't look at me. That moment, quiet and unspoken, felt more powerful than anything else. She lost the thing she clung to most, control. Weeks passed, and life slowly returned to normal. But it wasn't the same normal. I walked through the lobby without tension in my shoulders. I waved at neighbors. I even stopped to talk to Mike, the security guard, who apologized for not stepping in sooner. I should have had your back, he said. Next time I will. I didn't need revenge. I needed recognition. Justice. And I got it. And every time I pass through that lobby now, I remind myself of something important. When someone tries to take your voice, the most powerful thing you can do is speak louder.